Hey folks, hope you're all doing well and welcome back to the channel. We're back. We missed a month. We missed November. Uh, different schedules and guys were busy, but we managed to squeeze one in for the end of the year. So tonight we're talking about Skid Row, very well-known band. Kind of were together, then broke up and went through a bunch of singers, but they're together right now. They just put out an album last year. So we're going to be talking all things Skid Row tonight. And to help me in that endeavor, of course, I've got my two partners in crime, Mr. Pete Pardo and Mr. Martin Popoff. How you guys doing?
Doing well. Doing
good,
well.
Doing good. Good to see you.
So Pete hit a milestone. He just cracked 90,000 views. Or 90,000 subscribers, sorry. 90,000 views. Jeez, that was years ago. But yeah, so I want to congratulate Pete on that. And yeah, 100,000. Let's go. If you're not subscribed
towards it. Yep, we're gonna do it.
Yep. You're not subscribed to Pete, go over there and subscribe to him. So what's new and exciting, guys? What's been going on? We missed the whole month. What happened?
Life.
Doing a million shows too, you know. There's a lot of shows and books and mailing stuff, and went out west for a week and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, you got more of the Kiss books, I know.
Yep.
Which is awesome. So if anybody's, I did a quickie review on that, but Martin's got a fantastic book on Kiss. What is it? What is the correct 50 years? What did you call that one?
Kiss at 50.
Kiss at 50. Yeah. So check that book out. It's very, very cool. Alrighty. So, all right, let's get into this. So, usual thing. Actually, I'm going to change it up a little bit. I'm going to ask you, when was your first exposure to Skid Row, and have you ever seen them live? So we'll start with Pete.
So I saw them live once, only once, and that was my first exposure to them because I saw them open up for White Lion at the Chans in Poughkeepsie, New York, before they got signed to their record contract.
Oh, wow.
And I remember thinking, wow, this band is pretty good. They're going to go places. I think it's safe to say they went places, right?
Yeah, they did all right. They did all right.
They did all right for themselves. Yeah, but I was pretty impressed. Considering I, knew nothing about them and they were an opening act, but yeah. And then like not a year later, all of a sudden they were just blowing up big time. So I was like, that's that band that opened up for White Lion. So yeah. And they're one of those bands I always dug, but I never made another attempt to try and go see them live. And I was very sporadic in buying their stuff. One of those bands you always kind of dig, but you just don't invest in very heavily, I guess, because at the time, this is late 80s, and I'm ready to kind of like move on from metal for a few years and dive into like prog really, really heavily for a good chunk of the 90s. So it was a timing issue with me, I think. But I always liked their music, even revisiting their catalog to get ready to do this. A chunk of their catalog I really enjoy, and the others we'll talk about. So
yeah. What about yourself, Martin?
Who knows? I mean, it literally, I think back and think probably some hair metal album shows up in the late hair metal days on the racks, and I bought it. But something tells me I bought a used copy of the first album, right? It's funny. I tuck things into these records, but here's an original Skid Row bio for the first album, and then there's a repro of the press photo. And then remember, they were famous enough at one point. You're stapled together the article, but Baz on the cover of Rolling Stone. Check that out. So they were they literally got on the cover of Rolling Stone. But yeah, and I've seen them. I'm pretty positive that I saw them support Aerosmith in Toronto. So that would have been at Air Canada Center, I guess at that point, right, Hack? Would you think 89, maybe it was even Slave to the
Oh.
Grind tour. I don't know. And then I've seen them a couple of times with Johnny Solinger and met all the guys. And I think I had a beer or two with them. There was some big hair metal fest. I keep thinking they might have been at this crazy one I drove out to and stayed overnight at Watertown, New York. I remember that place. Oh, God, I met Don Dawkin and Bobby Blotzer and Olive Warren,
Oh, wow.
Warren DeMartini and Jizzy Pearl, and I think Tesla was on that thing, and I think Skid Row was on. I don't know. Maybe I'm lumping a bunch of stuff together, but I remember them at some outdoor thing as well. So yeah, Johnny Solinger as well. I haven't seen him with the new guy. So yeah, I think I've seen him maybe 3 times, maybe 4 times.
Oh, okay. That's a lot. Yeah, cool.
And fun fact, Rob Affuso, the drummer, grew up here in the Hudson Valley, probably not more than 5-10 minutes from where I live here. So,
well, yeah, they were from Jersey, so that's kind of local for you, Pete, sort of. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a New York guy. I think the rest of the band were all from Jersey. He's from over here. So
yeah. No, I mean, my first exposure was, I mean, they were the videos for, the big songs off of the the debut record. Those were on constant play, so that's where I saw them and or heard of them first. And I went to see, it was a Kiss farewell tour, and I think they actually called this the Lost Cities because they hit all the big cities and then they came back and played the secondary markets. Because when I saw them, I'm pretty sure it was in Hamilton, which is about, I don't know, 45 minutes an hour away. It's more like a secondary market. And they opened for Kiss on that farewell tour. And at that point, of course, it was with Johnny Salinger. And I think that was like right after they reformed again in 99-ish, somewhere around there. So, yeah. But, yeah, man. And I mean, what I remember about seeing them live is, man, they had a ton of attitude. They were just more like just really aggressive, kind of like a punky attitude, But, yeah, that was a good show. It was a good show. I just want to say hello to a few people that have popped in here real quick. So we have Monkey House, welcome. Kevin Smith, welcome. Nathan Fuller, who I would also thank very much for the super chat, much appreciated. We've got Kyle Hummel in here, Logan Collins, Quentin James, nice to see you. Jason Budney, 76. Tyler Patterson, he's been looking forward to this. Michael Easter, welcome. Papa Blue. Man, we got a lot of folks in here. I just don't want to repeat names. Zappa 21786, welcome. R2R3, how are you, man? Nice to see you. Mitch Heyman is with us. Iroxy Blues, Half Face, Drum Dude 74. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us. So we are going to go through the catalog. They've only got the 6 records. We're not including the EPs in this. We're just including the 6 full-length albums. So let's go, Pete and Martin. So what have you got for your number 6, Pete?
All right, my number 6 is going to be their 5th album from 2006, Revolutions Per Minute.
Okay.
So this is one of the albums that I had never heard before getting this assignment. So it was kind of interesting to listen to this for the first time. So here we got Michael Wagner coming back working with the band after working with them pretty exclusively on their earlier albums. I find that when listening to this compared to the other non-Michael Wagner productions, I think the sound is there that we want from Skid Row. Problem is, I don't think the songs are there. I think it starts off really good. You got this song called Disease, which is pretty heavy, pretty memorable, but man, it falls off a cliff after that. I think the band seemed like they really wanted to write shorter, like punky songs. They're just not memorable at all. I mean, listen to some of these song titles. Another Dick in the System, When God Can't Wait, Shut Up Baby, I Love You. I mean, come on, give me a break. And they're all like 2-3 minutes long. They're really quick and just energetic, but they're just bland and just not very interesting. And then they do the song called You Lie, which is like a country song. It's one of those albums, Martin and I talked about this ages ago, like albums where the production is really good, but the songs suck. This is a poster child for that. I think this is easily the worst album in their catalog. And for me, it's not even close. And now I'm reminded why I didn't bother listening to some of their stuff later in their career, right? So, yeah, Revolutions Per Minute, awful album. Terrible.
All righty. Okay. Martin, what's your number 6?
Okay, well, I must say this was a painful process. I went and actually played all this stuff over again. I played little bits of every single one of these songs again today, and went through this whole thing and reminded myself. And I feel like I went through all of them and said, I don't know if I need any Skid Row in my life anymore. Like it just felt like Slave was not as good as I remembered it as, and is more hair metal-y than I thought. The first one was better than I thought it was. And then these ones, I'm also going to go with one of these middle years ones, Johnny Solinger. I mean, we got to put on the record. I mean, he died of alcoholism, right? I mean, he's no longer with us. We lost this guy, but he was a good singer.
Yeah.
I mean, Baz was a good singer. Then Johnny's a good singer. The new guy's a good singer. I mean, it's basically, and they're all kind of singing like Baz. So they've all got, the big shouty stadium rock sort of sound. So he's there. So I went with August 5th, 2003's Thick Skin with this ridiculous album cover and even worse title. I hate when bands put two words together like that. I swear to God, that's one of the big reasons people hate Coldplay is the name just drives them nuts, right? It's like Coldplay means bad record, and it's like an adjective on a verb, and you're making this word that is like, it sounds like you have a cold, and it's not even a word. It's like people already are mad at them even before they hear any Coldplay. I feel the same thing with that. I do have a single cover, a promo single cover with 3 songs. That's actually a better cover than the actual cover. Right. So yeah, Phil Verone on drums is on this one, but it's the same kind of thing as Revolutions Per Minute. It's a little tribal, dirty, industrial kind of to kick things off. Melodic, a little bit of grungy. So they're bringing a little bit forward from Subhuman Race and throwing some of those elements in there as well. It's 2003. They're on a little label, everybody's complaining about Baz isn't there, the whole thing, right? It's all quite depressing, right? But there's some up-tempo doomy stuff, like they do a good job with sort of tribal drums and the thumpy bass thing that they've got going. But my notes say Mouth of Voodoo, grinding old school funky Skid Row, One Light, another Southern Creed ballad. So they got kind of like a few new metal-y Creed sort of things that they bring into it as well, because 2003, this is what's happening, right? New metal. Yeah. Creed is huge. They're still confused about their grunge direction before. They're still trying to be old Skid Row and prove themselves. So they're mixing all this stuff together. I Remember You Too, which is like a punk version of I Remember You.
Yeah.
Hitting the Wall, fast punk metal, Down from the Underground, dark, epic, heavy grunge ballad. So when they're doing ballads and stuff, they're this dark sort of version of ballads and stuff. So yeah, just I'll kick off with that one. It's kind of the worst years to be Skid Row, I think. Thick Skin.
Yeah. Well, my number 6, Revolutions Per Minute. So kind of to echo some of Pete's sentiments. The opener is cool. I mean, That Disease, that's a great song. Nothing is a cool song. It's kind of a pop punk thing, something like kind of Blink 182-ish, which is not a bad tune. Love Is Dead is not bad. Pulling My Heart Out From Under Me, that's a nice change up from the heavy guitars. But what's with these hokey country songs that they throw in there? Like what are they called? When God Can't Wait, or You Lie. Like, come on, man. Like, what is that about? That just kind of throws, that's a left turn down a dark alley for me. I do like the cover of Strength, that the song by The Alarm, which I like it because it sounds a hell of a lot like a cult song. So, but it's a good track. It probably the best track on this is the cover, actually. I mean, these guys are really good songwriters, but they just come up really short here. They usually have better riffs to go along with their great melodies, but yeah, this one kind of leaves me flat. So RPM, Revolutions Per Minute, 2006. So there you go. Alrighty. What do we got for number 5?
I'm going to go with Thick Skin for number 5. I think half the album for me is pretty good. The other half I don't really like at all. It just sounds like a band that has no clue what they're supposed to be doing. That's the same thing on Revolutions Per Minute. I think Johnny sounds really good on this album. I think he's a really good singer, actually.
Yes.
But they just don't seem like they know what the hell they're trying to do. I mean, New Generation, again, kind of like the Disease song on the other album. It starts off the album on a high note, might be the best song on the album. It just kind of goes downhill from there. Like Martin says, they're like this kind of like alternative rock, new metal thing going on throughout the whole album. It just doesn't, I don't know, it just doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense for me. But there are a couple pretty good songs. I mean, Mouth of Voodoo is really good. That and New Generation might be my favorites on the album, but they just sound like a band that's just lost their way, and they're like, they still want to continue on as a band, but they just have no clue what they're supposed to be doing. So I find these albums just overall really not all that unlistenable at all. And it's a shame because I think Johnny's vocals are so strong even on both albums, but there's just no material for him to really shine on, which I think is a shame. And of course, now he's not with us anymore. So yeah, Thick Skin, number 5 for me.
All right. What's your number 5, Martin?
I'm going with Revolutions Per Minute, October 21st, 06 on SPV. So they're at least on SPV, but yeah, it's a different drummer again, David Guerra at this. So it is Johnny Solinger still singing, of course, with the core band, Dave Sabo, Scotty Hill, Rachel Bolan. Yeah, I think they're kind of taking influence from Johnny's cowboy hat, right? The whole idea of they're just trying to fit into that party country cowboy festival sort of space, but it is punky at the same time. So the one on there that when God Can't Wait, it's almost like a Celtic Pogues / country sort of thing, but then White Trash is punky and funny. You Lie, yeah, definitely country. And then they do You Lie again with a corn-fed mix. It's called corn-fed mix, but it's actually the heavy version of the song, whatever that means, right? Michael Wagner produces. I don't know. I'm not crazy about the production. The snare sound is a little distracting, right? But yeah, I think this one's even more sort of flippant and fun. And look how wacky we are than Thick Skin even is. So I've got it in here. I mean, it's an interesting direction. It's an interesting kind of experiment. I think the album cover is pretty good. It's not a bad album cover. And the title Revolutions Per Minute, that's pretty cool too. But yeah, just kind of like it feels like we're part of a hair metal touring package playing outdoor country fairs kind of album.
Yeah, maybe they're trying to open up a new audience with that. Yeah, I don't know. It didn't work for me. Yeah, so my number 5, Subhuman Race.
Wow.
I guess all these bands, I know, shocker. I guess all these bands at some point, these 80s bands decide we need to make a grunge record. To me, this is like, the Kiss Carnival of Souls or Motley Crue's Motley Crue. It's like I don't know, they have to do something in that space. And, I mean, there's tracks on here. I hear some like Nirvana, STP, Alice in Chains. I mean, they do it well. I'm not saying that the whole album is bad. I mean, they do those bands quite well, but I would really like them to do their Skid Row. I like them to be Skid Row. And I mean, there's kind of a mix of Skid Row sounding material and then this sounding material, which is, again, is not terrible, but you can tell they're really kind of chasing that audience a little bit. So I'm just going to read here off my notes. So yeah, never a good idea when rock bands try to put out grunge records. Although this is one of the better of that ilk. There's some Skid Row sounding tracks, Face Against My Soul, Breaking Down, great track. But then they do, a pretty good Nirvana STP, Eileen. It is a good song. Alice in Chains, the, sounding song, Frozen, Soundgarden. That song into another kind of a Soundgarden-y feel for that. As a whole, it's not a bad album. I just wish they'd stuck to their guns and not done what not every band, but a lot of bands sort of went down that grunge path or try to sound, I guess, current at the time, because this was 1995. So, but there you go. So that, there just wasn't enough melody and hooks in this. Because that's, for me, Skid Row is all about really good riffs and really good melody. And it was lacking on this compared to their other records that I'm going to talk about here in a minute. So there you go. My number 5, Subhuman Race. Alrighty, what do we got for number 4, Pete?
All right, for me, I think all these albums forward are pretty enjoyable for the most part for me. Number 4, I'm going to go with The Gang's All Here, which is their latest album from last year, 2022. Sixth album, and Eric Gronwall from the Swedish band Heat is on board, and he's a really good singer. If you've ever never listened to Heat, he's terrific there as well. Kind of doing more like melodic rock type of thing, but I think he fits right in here. Some good songs, Hell or High Water starts off the album. Again, another really kick-ass album opener, which I think is important. Title track is catchy, little cheesy as well, but I don't mind that too much. I think the guitars are cranking throughout most of this album, which is good. Not Dead Yet, good rocker, really good chorus. Time Bomb, slower and heavier, another good chorus. Resurrected, another good one. Tear It Down, very anthemic, reminds me of the early stuff. World on Fire is also good. There's a lot of songs on here. A couple are a little on the weak side and not overly memorable, but I think for me, it's a really good return to form, getting the band kind of sound like we want the band to sound. And I think the production is really good, and Eric fits right in on vocals. So I'm interested to hear more from this version of the band. So pretty good.
Yeah. All right, Martin, what's your number 4?
Number 4, I went with Subhuman Race. So again, I parrot everything you said, Hack. It was absolutely perfect. I mean, this is them really, really trying hard to do a grunge album. They spent a lot of time arguing about it and working on it, spent a lot of money on it, and the booklet folds all out and stuff. There's a lot of anticipation for them. They basically missed a whole bunch of years in there. This is coming out in 95, and grunge is like ending at this point, right?
Yeah.
Soundgarden, I think, is breaking up, and Alice in Chains is now, I don't know, is Three-Legged Dog 95? I think it's 95 also, right? It's right in there anyways. Kurt Cobain's dead. So yeah, they're doing this really late, and they're doing it so by the book. It's completely grungy. And the thing that always bothered me, so number 1, I welcomed when bands would do that, because I thought it was, I'd rather hear this than another hair metal album. They do a really good job of it. It's very Soundgarden and a fair bit of Alice in Chains, and a little bit of, when it gets mellow, you could say it's a little Creed, it's a little Pearl Jam, right? But they do a good job of it. There's some integrity to it. Baz in this role doesn't seem believable, right? He seems to be the kind of guy who you would know, he would say, I'm not going to do that stupid grunge stuff or whatever. And then he's doing it, right? And then, of course, he emotes so much when he sings. He's like, it's just really sounds like he's trying super hard. And he's singing the same way he sings on the other 2 albums. And it doesn't sound, right, I suppose, for grunge or whatever right is. So I mean, they create kind of an interesting sound, but yeah, I've always thought it was a really, really, really good job of that. But in recent years, or maybe since this morning, it's starting to really bother me. I didn't receive it so well this morning when I kind of went through it again. So there's my number 4, Subhuman Race.
No, that's a really good point. Yeah, Baz sounds kind of out of his element on that whole record. Yeah, he's not convincing. Musically, it is convincing. They do a better job than most bands that went down this path. But yeah,
I got to mention my Baz story again, because I told this to Pete. I remember going out with I think it was Dave McMillan and Baz for an early morning breakfast meeting, right, in Toronto here, and we all sit down and everything, and he goes really politely to the the maitre d' comes by to take our order. He says, could I get like a hot bowl of bourbon? He says to the guy, looks at him totally sincerely, a hot bowl of bourbon, you know what I mean, hot bowl of bourbon. And he goes, I'm just kidding. It's really funny, eh? So yeah, I was just joking with the guy, but yeah,
that's funny.
Nice way to kick off our morning at 9 a.m.
Yeah. So my number 4 is Thick Skin. So and as Pete, for me, like what you were saying earlier, like the records from here on up are really, really good. Killer tracks on here. Ghost is really catchy, and the vocals are great on it. Born a Beggar, another great track. Lamb is a killer riff. Down from Underground, great hooky chorus, hitting a wall, cool rocker. This record has got a nice mix of the heavier stuff and some lighter, really nice melodic stuff in here. So it's, you're not getting pummeled over the head for 10 or songs or whatever it is. Um, you know, the one thing that is completely unnecessary on this is that punky remake of I Remember You Too. Like, come on. Like, what is the point of that? I don't get it. But the heavy tunes on this are good, but it's the mellower. Actually, for me, it's the mellower, more melodic songs on here that bring it up to number 4. So yeah, good record. Not I think I like it better than Martin, but yeah, not a bad album. Not a bad album. So there's my number 4. All right, what do we got for number 3?
All right, I'm gonna go with Subhuman Race, third album. So, I mean, for me, re-listening to this for the first time in a long time, it obviously sounds a little bit different because you got Bob Rock working on the production on this one, and no Michael Wagner, it gives it more of that kind of like grungy sound, sort of. It definitely sounds very, very different. I don't mind, this is them trying some different stuff. I don't really mind it too much. There's some definite heavy, Martin mentioned Soundgarden-y and Alice in Chains type stuff on here. I think they do it pretty well. It's a pretty dark and heavy album. There's even a couple of tracks that are kind of like close to thrash, or them trying to do thrash, like Remains to Be Seen in the title track, or them trying to do thrash. And I don't think that Sebastian Bach is really good in that role, because I think he's trying some different things on here. Like he's doing this kind of screamy thing in a couple areas, which it just doesn't work for me. But I think from a riff perspective, there's lots of cool stuff going on here. Frozen is almost like Black Sabbath heavy. Medicine Jar, I think, is really good. Iron Against My Soul is another good one. I don't really like the ballad Breaking Down. A couple other tracks don't work for me 100%, but I think it's I almost had this at number 2 because I like the heaviness of some of the album, but the more I listen to it, I don't think it's quite as memorable as the other two, but I don't really mind it. I think it's pretty good. It kind of has held up pretty well in my eyes. So that's number 3 for me.
Cool. All right. What do you got for number 3, Martin?
Number 3, I'm going with The Gang's All Here, and I feel bad about that because I could almost put this at number 1. I think it's really good. I think if you really, really like Skid Row, this is a perfect Skid Row album. I think it might even be the best sounding Skid Row album there is, because the first 2 are obviously pretty expensive sounding, and so is Subhuman Race. I don't think the next 2 are, but they might have some of those 80s, early 90s tropes that you don't want. This doesn't have any of this. This is just like a really good sounding, Pete, it's the kind of thing we complain about. It's almost too perfect, right? Yeah. But it's too perfect where, I mean, it has a little bit of that Priest firepower, very, very thick guitars, right? So, and they have all the Skid Row tropes. I mean, what this reminds me of a little bit is how impressive Rat's Infestation is as an album. And I love that album. I think that's amazing. And I think this is, frankly, if I'm not going to put this number 1, it's still the album by Skid Row over the next 10 years, however much I ever listen to Skid Row. It's probably the one I'm going to play the most because I thought they did a great job with it. Eric Grunwald sings amazing. It's got great vocals. But yeah, all of those funky, punky, tribal drum tropes, tubby bass, the songs where the naked bass is just playing on their own. They do all of that. So this is basically Skid making that perfect, polished, but still warm and fat sounding Skid Row album. I think everything on here is they're very, very aware of what a perfect Skid Row album would sound like, and I think they execute.
And I think this album really struck a chord with a lot of longtime listeners because I don't think anybody ever expected another album from them of this caliber. Because a lot of people I talked to who were pretty big Skid Row fans were calling this like the album of the year.
Yeah.
So yeah,
great
album cover really delivered. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, cool album cover with them walking away with
the jackets. Yeah,
looks really cool.
Well, guess what my number 3 is? Gang's All Here. I mean, it's what an amazing record. I mean, it's always cool when sort of I guess these guys are a legacy band. They've been around since '89, but it's always cool when they're able to put out a record like a current record that is as good, if not better, than what they did in their heyday. I mean, you can count on one hand the number of bands that have been able to do that. You know, you mentioned Priest for one. Just it's like they're back. This is the best post Sebastian album for sure, hands down. It's like they rediscovered themselves on this record. Everything is back. The great riffs, the really cookie catchy choruses. I mean, right off the bat, Hell or High Water is a killer riff, super catchy chorus. The Gang's All Here is another winner. Time Bomb, crushing heavy, and awesome. Tear It Down, another catchy rocker. Then they've got that nice, I call it the epic. I think it's about 7 minutes long, that October song. Just a beautiful, nice change up from all the heavy rock and riffs that are going on. So that's a nice break. There's no ballads on this record, but just a collection of really great rockers with major riff earworms and riffs and choruses to go in. It's like these guys, when you listen to that record, it's like Skid Row is back. Like all the hokey country and all the visit with grunge, that's all over. Now they're back to what they do best. This record for me is a rebirth, and there are no dogs on this record. So yeah, this could have been my number one. I mean, it's that good.
Great choruses, great pre-choruses.
Oh, beautiful.
But, when I said, like, if you like Skid Row, you should love this record. It's like, I'm not so sure how much I love Skid Row or the different things they do, right? Because Hell or High Water is the same old, it's monkey business over again, and so is Baz's new song. It's like, oh, let's do the monkey business thing, right? The Aerosmith funky thing, right? Like that funky thing Skid Row does. I don't know if I'm that crazy about it when they do that, but I like the punky stuff. I like that they've got that punk thing to them. And I just noticed on the back of this, Snake is wearing a Lords of the New Church shirt, which is cool. I forgot about that. That's kind of like a punk supergroup thing. And yeah, they were part of the whole dirty hair metal movement, right?
Yep.
That was kind of the whole idea with that look, right? So
yeah.
Anyways, sorry to interrupt.
No, don't worry, son. All righty, we're down to our top two. What do you got for number two, Pete?
I'm going to go with the debut at number two, Skid Row. I mean, this is an interesting time because this is like right at the end of the big hair metal scene, right? 89, kind of late, but this album did really big business. And I think, in revisiting this, pretty heavy album overall. Love the production. I mean, the guitars are just like larger than life, and Bach just sounds great. Big guns, catchy, big, thick guitar tone. Sweet Little Sisters, just raunchy as all hell. I love Youth Gone Wild and 18 in Life. I think those are two great anthems. They both became pretty good hits. You couldn't escape those. I think out of the popular songs from this album, I like those two the best. Here I Am, super crunchy, Making a Mess, awesome. I'm not as big, after all these years, I'm not as big on I Remember You. Can't Stand the Heartache. It's okay. Piece of Me is okay. But overall, I mean, I love the production of this album, and I think the songs that are really good are actually really great.
Great.
I just love the guitar tone on the album. Really love it. I'm amazed at how much I really, in revisiting this album and my number one, how much I love the production of it. It sounds better than life. So debut is my number two.
Cool. Yeah. All righty. What do you got for number two, Martin?
All right. So this is the other happy part of working on this exercise versus all the cranky parts. I was actually the other happy part is how great that new album is, really. But this kind of came up in my estimation. I haven't played this for a long time because I always remembered the production as kind of like really boomy and noisy and kind of hard. You got to have it on a good stereo to get into it. But I agree. I mean, I think the songs are really good. The guitars sound super thick. 89 is not exactly late in hair metal, but it's late to be starting your career in hair metal, right? So that's kind of crazy, right? But yeah, I feel like the thing that struck me about this is I couldn't believe how much it sounded like Rat to me. It sounded like Invasion of Your Privacy and Dancing Undercover and stuff. It really has a Warren DeMartini sort of vibe to the guitars. I thought that was kind of cool about it. And it doesn't sound like Bon Jovi or any, it's not been like tainted by the East Coast of it or anything, right? That punk thing serves them well, and Baz being a real shouter, leonine, he looks leonine and he sings leonine kind of thing, right? So they've got this interesting vocalist. He's from Canada, of course, Peterborough, right? But yeah, I think it struck me as a much heavier album than I remember, and any album that makes me think about Rat is that's a good thing. So it's both of these did that for me. So this went up in my estimation today.
Yeah, there's a similarity, like with Rat, you get that sort of wall of guitar sound, and you have the same thing with the guitar sounds on this record, right? And they
things
sound
are mid-paced and really muscular sounding too, right?
Yeah. The guitars are percussive and they're crunchy. Which kind of, well, there's my number 2 as well. So there you go. I mean, what a great record. I mean, it's undeniable. You got the hits, like, you were mentioning Youth Gone Wild. I Remember You, 18 in Life, but the deep cuts on this are also really cool. Like Big Guns, like you were saying, great track. Sweet Little Sister, Here I Am, Making a Mess. With me, what always sort of separated Skid Row from, the pack, if you will, of hair bands at the time was, well, first it was Sebastian's voice, man. That guy had an incredible, well, he still has a fantastic voice. And I mean, his vocal delivery on songs is incredible. The guy's range, his power, control, he's got it all, right? And the other thing that kind of separated them was their punky attitude. They were not trying to be pretty boys, which a lot of the bands were trying to be pretty boys. These guys were more like Skid Row, like street kind of punky attitude, rough and tumble, heavy guitar kind of band, right? And the guitar work on this is impeccable, man. Snake Sabo and Scotty Hill, are exceptional on this. And they're soloing too. They weren't like super flashy guys like a lot of guys were of the time, but what they had instead was all their lead playing was right in your face, and at the same time super melodic. And that's for me what separated these guys and kind of put them on a different shelf, if you will, compared to the other bands of the day, right? So yeah, that was a hell of a debut, man. Hell of a debut.
I agree with you. I think that they, to me, in revisiting these, they didn't necessarily have a Warren DeMartini or a George Lynch in the band, but they didn't.
Right.
The riffs are just so cool and well constructed that I think they didn't need to rely on these virtuoso, flashy guitar solos, even though there's plenty of great solos on the album. But that's not really why you listen to them for, right? It's about different things.
I mean, I Remember You, the solo on that song, the last 2 notes, the control, and that pinch harmonic at the end. Like, I mean, that's just magic. I mean, that's not, you know what I mean? But it's awesome. It doesn't have to be flashy to be great. And these guys were great. Just great. All right. Number 1, what do we got?
Slave to the Grind. Second album, everyone. Yeah. It's as good as I remember it. Again, smoldering production on it. Just super crunchorama, man. It's just like, and the album's heavier than the debut, even though, like we all said, that debut is heavier than we remember it. Man, Monkey Business, Slave to the Grind is awesome. The Threat, Psycho Love, Creep Show, Mud Kicker. I mean, all super heavy, great big grooves, memorable choruses. You got a couple ballads on there, but like Wasted Time is pretty good. But for me, the heavy stuff is just so heavy and so groovy. I just love it. And like I said, I think Dave and Scotty don't get enough credit for being, true riff masters of this era. So I think great album, heavy album, catchy album, all the above. And to me, it's their strongest album.
Yeah. What's your 1?
Well, I went with Slave to the Grind as well, but I
Uh,
think it came down a little bit for me. I almost feel like I could put all three of these, this one, the debut,
yeah.
and the new one, kind of all tied, which is sacrilege. I mean, this is supposed to be number one, so it didn't get knocked from number one, but I went through it and what struck me is it's a little bit like what people think about of as Screaming for Vengeance. It's like, oh, it's such a heavy return, and like half of that sounds like Point of Entry, right? Or Queen Innuendo. Oh, because everybody just thinks of the song Innuendo and forgets all the other ones when they think about how amazing Queen's last album was, or second last, depending on how you count, right? So what I felt about this going through it is there's still 40% of this is basically heavy stripper metal, hair metal, like the heavy stuff on the debut. They didn't really change that much on this. There's just a few standout tracks that are real steamrollers and fast and punky, where you really get that impression. So I don't think it doesn't strike me as that much different from the debut than I used to perceive. Because in the press, that's all they would talk about is how, oh, we're a traditional metal band, we're almost a thrash band, like we're leaving that stuff. And it was a smart move at this point. Yeah, you have to leave, right? So even though I think the music didn't leave as much as the talk said they did, but it was smart saying that they were getting out of that. Yeah, I agree. The production's amazing on it as well. The ballads are good. I have no problem with that as well. They were always good at that stuff. But yeah, Riot Act is kind of like Sex Pistol-y, so they got that punk thing in there as well. But I guess the thing that maybe annoyed me the most about going through this exercise again is those funky stripper metal kind of grooves, like Baz's sort of like rappy cadence when he sings something like Monkey Business, right? Like those vocals, I don't think dated too well. Or the phrasing of the vocals and probably even some of the lyrics. But yeah, just something about that whole, a little bit like the funkier songs on, say, Permanent Vacation or Pump or Getting Into whatever, Get a Grip, Nine Lives. I feel like there's a little bit of that in Skid Row that's starting to really rub me the wrong way, but it wasn't enough to knock it from number one. But like I say, the happy part is I could have put the new album at number one.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a trifecta. Slave to the Grind. I mean, come on. For me, this was like the perfect marriage of heavy guitars and catchy choruses. It had it all. The guitar tone on this record is just, it's incredible. I mean, you get the percussive chunkiness, and then you've got that sort of that grind, grinding guitar tone at the same time. I mean, Monkey Business alone, like Check Please, like I'm done. Like that song is just incredible. No matter how many times I've heard it, I always love that tune. And then you've got, The Threat, killer riffs galore, great chorus on it. Beggar's Day is awesome. Mud Kicker is relentless. I mean, for me, they were for this record, they were absolutely on the top of their game, and there's absolutely no dogs here at all. And they have as well, they have some lighter cool tunes that I like. In a Darkened Room, a great track. That is not a cheesy rock ballad, but actually for me a perfect rock ballad. It's got some great guitar on it, and the vocal is amazing. Quicksand Jesus is kind of okay, but still not a dog. I mean, it's like the perfect heavy record for me. I mean, guitar wise, solos, the riffs, it's just that perfect marriage of heavy but still melodic. Yeah, great record. Slave to the Grind.
We should add in kind of an important point is that, of course, obviously none of these later ones certify. Subhuman Race didn't even certify. I would have thought that probably would have gone gold.
Oh, I thought that one did.
But had it been 2 years earlier, it probably, or even 1 year earlier, it might have. But Slave to the Grind, double platinum in the States. The debut, 5 times platinum in the States. Massive album.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it had those radio hits, and they were on MTV and in Canada, Much Music, like all the time, right? All the time. Yeah. Alrighty. So Pete, you got anything coming up? Anything you want to mention coming up on the Sea of Tranquility channel?
Yeah, besides the normal stuff, yeah, nothing like earth shattering. You know, Martin and I will be on Friday morning as always. We've got. We're actually. I'm going to announce it here. I know we got some Sea of Tranquility people that are watching. We're actually going to be doing a Sea of Tranquility Awards this year. So
Cool.
yeah, we're putting together. We're doing it as we speak. We're putting together a big survey to get everybody's favorite Sea of Tranquility programs and Sea of Tranquility personalities from
Nice.
2023. So that will be going out. That anybody can fill out and take part in the survey. And then like January 1st or 2nd, we'll announce all the winners from the year. So that's happening as we speak. And I hope to get that survey, the link to the survey, out to everybody across all our social media channels over the next couple of days or over the weekend. So yeah, folks, look forward to that. So you can vote for your favorite shows across, Friday morning at the Fun House and Monsters Den and Hudson Valley Squares and the Prague Seat, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, so be on the lookout for that.
That's a great idea, man.
Yeah, I've been wanting to do it for a while, and I said I'm going to do it before the year is up, so that's coming.
That's cool. What about yourself, Martin?
Well, we have our weekly Contrarians album cover show, and there's all sorts of other shows. We just put up Who Invented Grunge, and we did a crazy hypnosis glitch in the hypnosis matrix show where we mixed around a bunch of hypnosis stuff. The books are all at martinpopoff.com. I've got Kiss at 50, AC/DC at 50, the Who book, the Bluish Cult book still doing well, Dominance and Submission, and the audio podcast. So every week there's History in 5 Songs with Martin Popoff as a straight audio podcast. And I just figured out this weekend's going to be what did I call it again? They Shrunk the Boogie. That's what it's going to be about. So cool. I won't say any more, but yeah, it's a good theme.
Martin, why don't we announce what we're doing Friday? Because I think we had such a positive response to last week's Funhouse show. So we should.
Yeah. So it's how are we titling it? Does this band or this band's Dark Side of the Moon, or does this band have a Dark Side of the Moon?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Like your Stairway to Heaven show the other day.
We need something very specific about Dark Side of the Moon, but it'll work out good because it means a couple of different things. But yeah, because the does this band have a Stairway to Heaven did rather well. We didn't get too many complaints about it. So yeah, good numbers. So yeah, it'll be a fun one.
Yeah, it'll be cool. No, by the way, Martin. So Martin was telling me last week about what they were going to be doing on the Contrarians with the hypnosis album cover mashup type thing. And then, you started posting a lot of them on Facebook, and I was looking at them like a lot of them. And he told me this, that I would think this, a lot of them make perfect sense when you swap out like the name of the band and the album title with the actual cover art. And I was amazed at how many I looked at that I was like, wow, that makes more sense with that album title with the artwork that you guys switched around. So very, very cool concept for those who haven't seen it. Go check out that episode because that's some really good stuff there.
Yeah, check out the Contrarians. I have a link to Martin's website below and a link to Sea Tranquility channel below. And folks, I'm trying to hit 4,000 or 5,000 before the end of the year. I'm about 160 away. I have in the stats, I got 70% of people watching that are not subscribed. So please consider subscribing to the channel. Help a Canadian out. I mean, much appreciated. So I want to thank these guys again. I want to thank everybody for watching. You guys rock. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you all soon. So take care, guys. Hang out.
Happy holidays, everyone.